All right, everybody, welcome. And make sure
Yes,
you
sir.
are muted because if you are not muted, you're going to show up on the phone. So, Summer, let me admit these couple of people. All right. We'll see how this goes for a technically illiterate person. All right, everybody, welcome. Today is, I don't know, January 18th. Milt and I just had our 30th anniversary. Yesterday and the day before of when God brought him into my life so I would know what love is. So I can't
Yay.
believe it's 30 years. We've been together 30 years, but just thought I'd let everybody know and welcome everyone. So we're delighted to introduce you folks to Summer Bacon. Summer played a major role in my spiritual growth and awakening when we moved to Sedona. A lot of you have heard our story. And when we were introduced to Summer, um, we learned that he channeled this delightful being called Dr. Peebles, and we went and met her and met Dr. Peebles. So, Summer, welcome. Thank you for
Thank
joining us. It's so fun to connect with you again.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's exciting. It really is. It's been a lot of years since we
Absolutely, a lot of years. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
what we're going to do is we wanted to start out by letting you share a little bit of your journey of how you started on working with Dr. Peebles, your spiritual journey, because a lot of people are interested in that. I personally have to say, there's a lot of channelers out there now, and you have to be one of the pioneers, one of the most gifted channels of spirit. And so I want to thank you for that. Um,
Thank you so much. My gosh.
yes. And, it's been really, really great to experience your work and you and that kind of thing. So you take
Thank
it
you.
away and tell us a little bit about your journey.
You
And
know, you know, well, first of all, thank you so much. That's so sweet of you to say. I mean, my goodness. And I think every channel does what they do differently and probably are the expert in their own area of whatever it is that they do. And I had actually made a couple of notes this morning because I wanted to mention the fact I did read, I have not finished it yet, but your Reluctant Medium book that Milt shared with me. And interestingly enough, I mean, I wasn't raised Catholic or anything like that. I wasn't in a Christian church-going family, but my parents did talk about Jesus as being, the baby, the Son of God, and that God is love. And but my journey and your journey are kind of similar, Susan, because of the fact that you got very frustrated with the church and wanted to know God and said, "Come on, God, just show me, show me yourself, show me who you are. What am I really to believe here?" And that's really how it started for me in so many ways. I mean, I was 11 months old when I knew I was here to find out what this truth thing was about once and for all. But and that was a very clear memory of mine. But when I started the journey as a self-taught trance medium, because I was scared, I was intrigued by it, but I was scared of it. But I really wanted tangible evidence that spirit was real, that God was real. And I know because I had been a born again Christian for about, I don't know, 2 years or 3 years, drove my family crazy, and proselytized to everybody. But I was still terrified. I had gotten out of the church, but I was still terrified of demons and that this stuff was not good, that channeling was of Satan and all these things. But I thought, but why does it feel so good? And that when I hear the spirit talk and it's so loving and it's so real. And so I did sort of the same thing. And I said, God, if your love is real and constant, then you've got my back. So I'm going to trust that you've got my back. And if I'm meant to do this, then I will do it. And if I am not meant to do it, you'll pull the plug on it. I have nothing to fear at all because I know you're with me. And so that's what I said to God. And that's when I started my journey of just sitting down in a chair. And I thought, if spirit exists, they don't have a problem knowing that I exist. That's not the problem. It's me knowing that they exist. And how do I find them? So I started to reach out with my heart. And I sat in this room in my parents' house. I was I was out of a marriage. No, yeah, I was just out of a marriage, and I had a baby girl, and I was living with my parents, and they had a small recording studio that they had created uh, in their garage, and it had um, lead doors and things like that. So it was sealed very tightly with no windows, and it was very dark when it was closed up. And I was terrified of the dark because I would see spirits, hear spirits, feel spirits around me. So I decided to face all my fears, and I closed the doors and I sat in the dark, and I said, Spirit, if you're real and if you're here, I want you to stand in the center of the room and I'm going to look for you. So I just gazed into the darkness basically for hours on end. And eventually I saw this orb, and it just appeared, and it was just beautiful. And I was like, oh my gosh, this magenta orb. And I said, is that you, Dr. Peebles? Because I had met Dr. Peebles through another trance medium, Thomas Jacobson, who stopped channeling him. So this is one of the things that kicked off my desire to find Dr. Peebles, was that I didn't have Thomas to talk to him through. And so the orb just got bigger when I said, "Is that you, Dr. Peebles?" And it expanded. And then I asked these yes and no questions, and I found out that yes was always the expansion, and no was always a small. It would get smaller, and I did this for weeks and weeks. I mean, I was just obsessive. It was just crazy. I'd come home from work, I put my baby to bed, and I would sit there for 3 or 4 hours every single night talking to this orb and looking for spirit. So anyway, so eventually what happened was I got really bored with this. It was kind of boring after a while. And I said, I don't know what the next step is. And all of a sudden the orb just flew up next to my head. And I went, whoa. And I went to touch it, and my hand disappeared as I went to touch it. And that kind of kicked off this other thing. That was when Thomas would channel Dr. Peebles, it was full body trance, which means that the spirit would come in to Thomas's body and use the vocal cords and the muscles and everything to speak, rather than consciously channeling, where you hear the words and you actually speak the words, or it's so direct from spirit that you're speaking the words without really thinking about them. This is deeper than that, in that not in that it's a better thing or anything. It's just a different way of doing it, which is allowing spirit to actually use the vocal cords and come into the body and take the body over. And some people would say, well, that you're possessed. And it's like, I would say, yes, but I'm being possessed by love, and that's what it is to me, is it's possession by love. And I've used this example before of an actor. If you think about a really great actor or actress, and you're just immersed in what they're doing, and you think, my God, how did they, get into character? Well, they didn't get into character. They let the character get into them. And I really think they're almost possessed by this being that really does exist somewhere, because we really can't write about anything or create anything that doesn't already exist somewhere, and we bring it and manifest it into the physical here. So that's the way I think of describe the process of transmediumship, is that it is, in some ways, it's really surrendering to spirit so much, with so much love, and letting them completely take over the body to speak. And so this took me years, though. I'm telling you, this didn't just happen overnight. This isn't something like spirit just came hopping into my body or anything. And I gave them permission, but no, it was a loving process that I had to surrender and kind of pass the torch of this body to them. And when I finally did surrender, I was really frustrated. I had been doing, I guess I must have been anywhere from 3 to 6 years. I was practicing this constantly, trying to figure out how to do this. And one day I was in extreme, excruciating physical pain. My back was in excruciating pain. I thought maybe I was dying. I didn't know what was going on, and I was just frustrated, and I couldn't work. I was in my bathrobe, and my husband at the time, who was not a nice man, he could be a nice man, but he was very abusive. And he said, "Oh, just go in the bedroom and meditate." So I was like, fine, and I went into the bedroom, sat in this rocking chair, and I said, "Okay, God, I want to be healed now." And I hear, "Go get your husband and bring him into the room. Doctor's orders." And I was like, really? He's never going to come in the room because he's non-compliant with anything I want. And I went out and I said, "I guess you're supposed to come watch me meditate." And he goes, "Oh, okay." And I was like, "What?" And he comes into the room, he sits down, He goes, okay. And I said, okay, he's here. And I was like, now what? And all of a sudden my head went back and this voice came out. It was Dr. Peebles. And he talked to my husband for an hour. And my husband's jaw was on the floor afterwards and had talked to him about people that I did not know that he had never told me about. All sorts of things about my husband that he had never told me about. And he was literally just blown away. And so that was basically the beginning of my journey. But I want to make it really clear that the reason that I do this work, and I'm just like you, the reluctant medium, exactly the same, Susan. Didn't want to do it. I don't still want to do it. Frankly, and to this day, I'm still reluctant every time. I am blessed by it because of the fact that I can get up in the morning and do something that I know is going to really, help somebody. But at the same time, it's exhausting and it's a lot of responsibility. And but so the thing about it is I did this for me. I had to know that God's love was real and constant. I did not ever, 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 ever want to be a trance medium to do this as a job. But after I went into trance, it turned out that spirit needs somebody to talk to if they're going to talk through you. And so then people, that they'd find out what I did, they would ask me, oh my gosh, do you think you could channel my mother or my brother or my daughter or da 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 and all. I said, I don't know, let's try. And so I did that, and I did that work for people, anybody who needed it. I dropped everything and did it, and I did it for 3 years, and I didn't charge for it or anything. And then I quit. I didn't want to do it anymore at all. And then
What made you think that it was time to quit?
what was that?
What made you think it was time to quit when you just said, I'm just
I
going to
just didn't. I channeled for this woman. She was elderly. She was in her 90s. And I had channeled lots of dearly departed loved ones, full body channeling. I mean, they came through. If they used to play with their jewelry, they'd play with their jewelry. If they fiddled with their hair, they would do that through me. They spoke very directly about things that they had done in their life and everything to the people that I channeled for. I never knew who I was going to channel. Dr. Peebles would come through and he would introduce who I was going to channel. But anyway, this woman came to my house, and I had been doing this for 3 years or so. And she asked about her husband, and he came through, and she's talking to him, but he said, she's, what are you doing now? And he starts talking about how he was learning to play an instrument or something like that. And he was very fascinated with instruments, and he wanted to start building them. And she's like, that doesn't sound like him at all. That's not, he was never interested in music or anything else. And Dr. Peebles came through and he said, your husband is interested in instruments. Beings on the other side actually do grow. They find new interests. They do new things. They practice new stuff. The learning never ends and that sort of thing. But for me, that was the first time I'd ever channeled a dearly departed loved one where somebody countered it with, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't sound like something they would do. But she was intrigued enough that she thought, she could feel the presence of her husband, but she couldn't reconcile why he was doing what he was doing. But he wanted to grow. So after that session, I just said, I can't do this anymore. I just didn't want it. I didn't, I quit another time, but that was a whole other story. But I just decided I wasn't going to do it. And then literally everything was taken from me. And I had no money. I was going to go get a regular job, and that was taken from me because of my ex-husband now, who was the people who hired me for this great job. I was a graphic designer for 10 years, and they were going to hire me as a graphic designer, and I was super excited about it, really good pay and everything. And they said, we want you here, but we're afraid of your husband. We're afraid he's going to, come in and shoot everybody up or something. I was like, oh my God. So I lost that job, and I was destitute. I had no money. And a friend of mine, Linda Shea, she works with dolphin energy. She said, why don't you do an open session? And I said, what's an open session? She said, my husband and I will be your first clients. We'll pay you $15 each, and we each get to ask a question. And I was like, okay. And so I did a session for them. And so I announced, through them, they started telling people that I was doing these open sessions. And I did them Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Nobody came on Monday, nobody came on Friday, but people always seemed to come Wednesday morning. So I eventually narrowed it down to Wednesday mornings, and then, it kept the electricity on. I was a single parent with two children and had to make money, and actually, I think I was remarried, and I also had a stepson as well, and I was supporting my husband and my stepson, so I was supporting the whole family through this, and it was slow growing. I mean, I'd have 5 people, and then I'd have 10 people, and this went on and on and on for years. But it was but the thing is, again, I didn't do it because I wanted to become a trance medium. What I do this for, and my real message in all of this is, I was clearly told by Spirit that this is something that I would do as a demonstration to others of what is possible. And I do believe that every single solitary person on the earth, no matter who they are, what walk of life, what they've done, crimes they've committed, every single person has the ability to find spirit and find God within. And I believe that every single person, if they knew that, would be so empowered that I think that governments and religious structures and all of that would fail, because we wouldn't need all of that anymore. All the barriers, borders, and boundaries would come down, and we'd really truly know that we are birthed from love, that we are love, and we wouldn't want to do anything but love, because it feels good to love. It's very, as Dr. Peebles will say, it takes a lot of energy to hold the world at arm's length. It's a lot easier to surrender into the embrace, and we spend so much time trying to figure life out from the outside in, when it's really happening on the inside. I cannot pick up a pen without it first happening inside of me. Oh, I'm going to pick up a pen. There I do it, and I manifest it in the physical. There's nothing that you can do or have in your life that didn't happen first inside of you. Even, buying a dozen eggs or something. It happens inside of you first. I need to buy a dozen eggs. Okay, let's go manifest that. Okay, let's make it happen. But I really encourage everybody to develop your own personal deep relationship with God and Spirit. And I've never wanted a following, because I want people to follow themselves. Follow your heart, not mine. I'll do it in my way, but you do it in yours. You develop your own unique, beautiful relationship with God and Spirit. This is mine. I know who I am. I know what I'm about. When I was divorced from my very abusive husband, he was slandering me around town, saying all kinds of things about me in the small community. I lived in Sedona, Arizona for many, many years. And he just slandered my name and everything. And my daughter came home one day, and she had overheard a waitress at a restaurant where she was with her friends and her friend's family. And they were talking about me, the waitress and the people at the other table. And they were saying all these horrible things about me. And Emily, my daughter, said, Mommy's not like that. You're not like that. I didn't know what to do, Mom. And I said, oh, honey, don't worry about it. You didn't have to do anything. I said, people will just talk. Let them talk, whatever. And she left the room. And then I was so angry. And I thought, I'm going to go after him. I'm going to go get an attorney, and I'm going to sue him. And, and I swear, just like you, Susan, you hear God. And when God wants your attention, God gets it. And I just felt the presence. Just it comes over me like this. And I just, like, almost like he puts himself on me like a cap. And he goes, Summer, I know who you are, and you know who you are, and that's all that matters. And I went, oh my gosh, you're right. It doesn't matter what anybody says about me or what they think about me. It doesn't matter if they like me or they don't like me. I know who I am. God knows who I am. And if I'm in integrity with that relationship, that's all I need. And so that became my starting point for everything in my life, and doing this work. And so again, I'm not out to prove anything to anybody. You can't. You really can't. You got to prove it to yourself. I can do something here that's pretty extraordinary, and you might raise your eyebrows and you go, wow, that's really cool. That makes a lot of sense. Others might look at it and go, that's a crock, she's, and and leave more skeptical than when they arrived, which is fine too, because that just shows that person who they are, and they learn more about themselves and where they're at with life. So there's no, absolute on any of it. It's just, this is something I happen to do. I know what it's about, and I don't doubt myself, but that's just who I am. So that's my main message though, is really, and I just to demystify mysticism. I mean, we all have this ability. If you think, oh, well, I don't know if I have the ability, well, everybody has intuition, whether they know it or not. And it can be as simple as that moment where you just think, I'm probably going to need to save up for a new dishwasher. I have the feeling this one's going to break, even though it's running great. It's not that old, but something in you just went, I don't know. Yeah. And you just have that fleeting thought, and then you ignore it. And then the dishwasher breaks and you go, oh, darn, I wish I had saved the money to buy the new dishwasher or whatever. You get these little nudges from the universe, and that's channeling. I mean, that's the same thing. Even, you know, I was thinking of all these things when I was reading your book, Susan. Um, yeah, God, I was in the church, yeah, as a born again Christian, because my friends said that the reason I heard these voices and stuff is it was demons trying to get me, even though the voices were very beautiful and all this. But I was in the church. The last time I was in the church, 300 people in this huge Christian church in Los Angeles. And we were told to make circles of 10 people, 15 people, hold hands and let the Holy Spirit move us. And that maybe there might be some sounds or words coming out of our mouth that we don't understand, but just to let it happen. And I was just like, oh, okay. So we held hands, and as we went to get our groups together, this very elderly man came into the church. He was all hunched up, and all his hands were all gnarled, and he was really hunched up. And he sat in the back pew. And I thought, oh, and he was all by himself. And I thought, oh my gosh, my heart just went out to him. And I was just like, I want to talk to that man, and give him some love. But so we get in our groups, and sure enough, I feel the Holy Spirit. Sure enough, I hear words coming out of my mouth that I don't understand. And I guess 20 minutes later, I popped out of this trance. And I guess I was the only one who was still, doing this. And the whole congregation backed away from me, like took a big step back, like, wah. And this elderly man in the back of the church, who was all gnarled up and everything, he stood up straight as and tall as could be. His arms went out like this, hands unfurled, and his head went back, and this angelic voice came out of him that just was just so beautiful. And I'm looking around like, this is amazing. This is a miracle, And I'm looking to the minister and I'm thinking, we have just witnessed a miracle. Praise the Lord, And the minister's like, turn to him, da-da-da. Nothing, said nothing about this. And the elderly man just curled back up, sat back down. And I thought, okay, I'm done. And I gave my $20 and I left and I drove home and I said, God, I'm sorry. If I'm going to hell, I'm not going back to church, And again, I hear God say, Summer, if you go to hell, there's always a chance for redemption. He said, because I'll be there too, because I'm omnipresent. And I went, oh my gosh, yes, God is everywhere. You're never without God. Even if they want to tell you you're going to go to hell, God will be there with you, And so that was just one of the things that I was like, oh my God, oh, I know. I remember the other thing I wanted to share was somebody came to talk to Dr. Peebles and said, well, I don't know about this channeling thing, Dr. Peebles, as she's talking to him through a channel. And she says, I don't know about this channeling thing. I mean, isn't that not allowed, when they talk about it in the Bible, isn't that of Satan or something? And Dr. Peebles' response was, my dear, how do you think the Bible was written? And she just went, oh, right. you know, and there are so many instances of channeling in the Bible. And actually in Leviticus, where it says all spirit knowers and mediums shall be stoned to death, which will have any mystics shaking in their boots if they have ever had any exposure to the church. Stoned to death, the origin of that is ancient Hebrew, I believe it is. That my friend who's extremely studied in all Bibles of all kinds, and ancient Aramaic or something like that. It means to tear down, to rebuild closer to God. And literally, I think that, would you concur, Susan, that that's what it feels like? Like you're called on your stuff constantly. I can't drive 5 miles an hour over the speed limit. I can't lie. I mean, I really, I'm a human being, and sometimes but I can't not tell the truth. I'm just constantly called on my stuff. I have to constantly be torn down and rebuilt closer to God. And so I found that really fascinating, and that helped me with a lot of things. And there's other instances in the Bible of all kinds of channeling. I mean, Jesus himself was a channel. He heard voices. He saw spirits. He performed miracles and all sorts of things with the love of God running through him. He was channeling that, when he's healing people. So to me, this is part of my message as well, is just to demystify mysticism. It is not a scary thing. It's an extraordinarily empowering thing to know yourself in this way. And it doesn't make anyone any better than anybody else. I don't care what anybody says. There are so many, I have to say, there's so much competition between channels and stuff. Oh, this one's the best and that one's not, and da 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 da. And some people, then they feel exalted, and then their egos get inflated, and it's like, no, guys, you're missing the point here. That it's not about out there. It's not about how many, big of an audience you have or whatever. It's about who are you, and what are you doing with it, and how are you growing? And that's it to me. That's it.
Milt had
And
a
then,
question. Did you have a question?
Yeah, it's pretty easy to understand from what we're taught in Sunday school for people to be afraid of the mystical and metaphysical aspects of our spiritual journey, though. I mean, we're taught to fear right away. If I don't believe what God wants me to believe, I'm going to wind up in a lake of fire. So at 12 years old, damn, I'm going to choose Jesus, And
yeah.
so it's a lot of push and pull. And as mediums, we have to be understanding of that aspect of the journey.
Yeah, I mean, I really relate to what you're saying. I think you and I are a lot alike, Summer.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
really sensitive spirits. I mean, the question I have for you as I'm listening is, you know, we choose when we come in what we want to experience and what we want to do. Have you been given a clue about what precipitated this journey in this lifetime as being a medium and a channeler? Because I agree with you. Uh, you can study all you want to the Bible about God, but until you experience God, you don't know what God is like. And
Yeah.
so your journey and mine is about there's got to be a deeper connection of experience with spirit. And that's what you experienced, and that's what I experienced. But was there a journey where you realized, hey, I came in to do it in this lifetime?
Yeah, and I do want to say, in your book, I loved what you said about you decided you wanted to find out about God from God rather than from another person or a book.
Mm-hmm.
And you were like, I want to go straight to the source. And I think that's really key right there. I am pretty sure I have been attempting this for lifetimes. I do know of one lifetime where actually verified it, that I was a famous actress named Lily Langtry. And she actually had a moment, and I found this out through automatic writing. I didn't even know who she was. And she said during that lifetime, she said, "I'm going to be the greatest trance medium to ever walk the earth." And she had a seance in her house with her father's permission, and the furniture started moving around, and it was an extremely powerful seance and very scary. Scared the crap out of her, and she never did it again. She quit. And when I wrote this down, I talked to somebody who knew who Lily Langtry was, and they said, "Well, she was an actress, and she did all these things that you know you wrote about, except that part about the trance medium." They said, "I think that's probably you wishful thinking or something, Summer." And I was like, "Oh, well." I went to the library and I found a book about Lily Langtry and her lifetime. There weren't many, but there was one in particular, and it fell on the floor out of a stack of about 12 books that I had. And I picked it up and I looked in the back, into spiritualism, and I opened it to 2 pages where it literally says that she had a seance, that she said, "I'm going to be the greatest trance medium to ever walk the planet Earth," that she had this terrifying experience and she quit. So, and I know that I've had past life regressions, and I do believe in past lives. And I know that I've been persecuted in other lifetimes, pretty much, burned at the stake and squashed by stones and all kinds of things. And I think I'm just perseverant, and I'm like, I'm gonna find out what this truth thing is about once and for all. When I was 11 months old, that's what I thought. At 9 months old, I was in the hospital because I had 104 fevers, and my parents were worried about me, and I was put in the hospital and under observation, supposedly. And I was in a room with all these other babies, and I had this memory of this, and I verified it with my parents, and I said, "This is what I remember." And I was the only baby who could stand. And my mom said, "Yeah, you were standing at 9 months old." And the nurse and the doctor came into the room, and they were going to give me, I thought, food. I was hoping a bottle was on that tray, but it wasn't. They gave me a shot. And I I went out of body. I rose above my body, and I looked at all the babies in the room, and there were just lights dancing around them like angels, and but not like, not wings, but I mean it was beautiful, angelic kind of energy all around them. And I was given a choice of whether I wanted to live or die. And I remember God saying, "You can leave or you can stay," and help them. And I said, and I looked at all of them and I said, "I'll stay. I will help each and every one of them." And I, came back. And it's interesting because the hospital where that happened, that was torn down years later. And I really, to this day, and my parents agreed with me on this, think that we weren't under observation. We were being used in experiments, with experimental drugs and things like that. But I was always driven. I always had this feeling inside of me that I just wanted to help every single solitary person on the planet. And, that's, you know, that's that's a lofty, but hey, you can try, right? Why not?
Yeah, well, I think that does happen only because of your own journey and you changing the energy of who you are and bringing in more divine love. I think it does help every person on the planet. Not necessarily that they may have heard Dr. Peebles through you, but because of the journey that you are going on, you
Yeah,
vibrate at that divine love level, which affects the whole planet. And to
that's right.
me, that's what I think is going to save the world. Is not it is each of us finding the divinity within us and vibrating, expressing that in the world. That's what's going to change the world, not anything else.
That's a really good point. I thank you for saying that, because you're right. And I have to kind of remind myself about that. I should just put that, put your words on in a frame or something, because it's so true. Dr. Peebles once said, you know, when you stub your toe and you're like, why? It hurts so bad. Ah. And he said, what if we told you that when you stub your toe, you just saved 100,000 lives just by that one little micro movement that shifted the energy of the earth, that maybe just righted the airplane or the ship or you never know, or diverted that bomb from that area or something, just because of that. And it's an interesting way to think about it, because it's all energetics, really. I mean, everybody's connected. We are all connected, and you know, to everybody, even the people you don't like. And that's why you pray for the people that pray for your enemies and pray for them to be uplifted and everything. But yeah, you're 100% right about that. I mean, it is we never know. It's the Emily Dickinson poem. If I were but to lift one fainting robin unto its nest again, I shall not have lived in vain. It's like that. And maybe that's all you came here to do. That was your part, you know.
And that's beautiful, and I agree with that, and hang on a sec.
I guess see the three of us.
I don't know if our guests can see the three of us. I think
Put
they
us
can
on
just,
the three thing.
yeah. I don't know if we can do that or not.
I see nodding heads there that they can.
They can see both of us. Yes, I think so. So,
I mean, I got washed up
yeah, everybody,
today.
Milt wants to make sure everybody sees him because he's all yellow and beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, I appreciate all that, and it's like, you can really feel the presence of spirit with you, Summer, and I just wanted to
Thank you.
acknowledge that. And your soul is I feel like so big and so vibrant, and sometimes we don't feel that in ourselves, you know what I mean? And I just want to acknowledge that the big soul, beautiful soul that is you, that we don't always see within ourselves. It's there and it's very, very present. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. And,
Thank
you know,
you.
your journey is really beautiful in that the reluctance, and I'm the same way. And sometimes I think that's how you know somebody's really where they're supposed to be, because they're throwing hissy fits all the time that, why do I have to do this? I don't want to do this anymore. I mean, Milt can testify to that, and yet spirit just keeps pushing us in that direction and pushing in that direction.
Yep.
But it's the transformation of our own soul is what's happening. And again, I think that's what's changing the world, is our own, no matter how we go about it or how spirit leads us. Yours is through channeling Dr. Peebles, mine's through a different way, everybody else is through a different way, but that's getting that heart open, and that divine love flowing through is what we've come here to do.
Yeah, yeah. I really 100% agree with you on that. And when it gets tough, and I feel, I have my little pity parties for myself, like, it's so hard. When like I had somebody call me a Satanist, and it's like, really? Yeah, okay, whatever. To each his own, if that's what you think. I don't know why she felt that way, but I don't know. It just really it hurts. I'm human.
Mm.
And so there's days where it's hard, but then at the same time, I guess the thing that I did carry away from the whole experience of knowing Jesus, and Jesus actually came to me, and I saw him physically, and he saved my life. And he was just amazing. I mean, huge, massive, gorgeous, stood taller than the door frame, and the love was just beyond your wildest dreams of anything you could ever imagine. But one of the things that I think about when I feel like it gets rough or it gets difficult with anything in my life, and not even just this work, but just the daily grind, I think about Jesus, and I think, here this man knew from the day he was born what his destiny was, and he didn't run away from it. He ran to it. He didn't run away from the cross. He ran to it. He knew what he was about. He was about his father's business, and that was that. And that's what he did for 33 years on earth. And, there's all kinds of things that I hear about him, and people who, write a lot of different things that they think are the truth about his life. But I really think that this was a man who truly was about his father's business. And that's what he did every minute of the day. And, if most of us, I think, I mean, maybe all of us excluded from this next statement, but many people in the world, if they knew that they were going to die on a cross, that's how they were going to die, I'm pretty sure they might spend their entire life figuring out a way to make that not happen. you know, and to run away from, oh, there, I see that cross. And Jesus goes, oh, wait, let me carry that for you. I'll carry it. You know, I'll carry my own cross. I mean, it's insane. It's like, so that's when I get snapped out of my pity party and go, okay, 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 I can do this another day.
Yeah, very good. I know that's where spirit always leads me, become the love you're created to be. Is when
Mhm.
I go into a pity party, they'll always say, just become the love you're created to be. It's not about what you do, it's about who you are. How you express that in the world, and we get so busy doing and, you know, which another thought that came up for me, the world is just seems so, especially those of us on the spiritual journey, it's like we're always running from the lower energies or from third dimensional characters that are locked in the consciousness of this world and don't understand spirit. And right now it just seems like it's repelling us, and yet I love your statement about running into it, because that's what we came in to do, but we're going, I can't do this. I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can be around this energy anymore. I don't know if you struggle with that, but it's just an interesting time on the planet.
Well, yeah, I mean, but you have only a couple of choices. Your choice is to be with this energy, and it's not easy for any empath to live in this world, for 5 seconds. I mean, it can be very, very difficult. But the other option is to turn it off, and I wouldn't want to turn off my gifts for anything in the world, because at least I've got that to fall back on, despite anything that's happening in the world at any given moment. I mean, it's no, it's not an easy journey, but nobody's journey is easy. We all have our challenges, whether we're the mystic or not. And not knowing the mystic that you are I think is a sad state of affairs. I really do believe that it was deliberately done to us, that we're told and squashed down to be afraid and to fear death and fear hell and fear Satan. And I mean, my God, those years I was a born again Christian, I mean, Satan was in my lunch meat. I was sure. I mean, they talked more about Satan than they did about Jesus. They talked about ways to avoid Satan. It's like, and so that's all I kept thinking about is, I mean, he's here somewhere. I know it. I know it. I'm on high guard all the time.
That's
But
good.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing now and how people can, find out more about you. Here in a few minutes, if you can bring Dr. Peebles through for us, we'll
Oh,
have
sure, yeah.
questions for him. But
I can feel him here.
before you
Yeah.
get involved in that, I really want to know more about your work and how they can get in touch with you, your books, and what you're doing now in this journey as a trans medium.
Yeah, well, I've been a trans medium for 30 years as of December 4th of 2024, and I'm pretty wiped out. It's physically very exhausting, simply because my body is a low voltage wire, and Dr. People's energy is high voltage coming through, which you'll see in a minute. And so it's exhausting. So is standing on your feet all day as a clerk. It's exhausting. Over the years, it takes its toll, but whatever. Um, so I don't really know what my next steps are going to be. I'm not doing private sessions at this time. I used to do those for years. I do have some that I do for existing clients. I do trans coaching, if you're interested in opening up to your own gifts. And I do have books. I have my autobiography. I have a book of quotes of Dr. Peebles, which is really fun. It's 365 days of quotes, and you can just kind of open it every day to whatever page and get a little shot in the arm. It's kind of not that kind of shot like I had when I was in the hospital, though. This is the good stuff. Um, and then yeah, and there's another book called This School Called Planet Earth, which is a lot of Dr. People's teachings and stuff. But my website is my name, summerbacon.com. And I have a lot of recordings there. Dr. People speaks, and I do those pretty much on a monthly basis. And I'm starting to do more gatherings like this. I'm looking more forward to doing more, maybe small group gatherings, and maybe small group gatherings with a Q&A with Dr. Peoples at some point. So that's kind of the direction I'm going in now, but I just got to figure out something to do because I got to keep working, and it's either this or I'm going to go work at Home Depot, because that's the only other thing I can think of that would, be fun.
Did you want to say?
Yeah. Do you have any concept of the number of people that you have helped move from religion
You
to
know, mm,
spiritual to the mystical part of the spiritual journey, like
I
you've done for us.
Mhm.
Oh, I have no idea. You know, I did an interview that had 237,000 hits on it, and so I don't know. I mean, I don't know the scope of what Dr. Peebles has done, but the thing is, and this is the beauty of it. Really, is it's about the seeds that you plant along the way. So, I know that the words of Dr. Peebles has touched people's lives, and even maybe my words have touched somebody's life, just like your words, anybody's words can touch somebody's life, and they carry it with them forever. I mean, I'm sure all of us have somebody in our life who's touched our life with something they said, and it transformed us. And it had nothing to do with talking about God and spirit. It might have just been, clip your toenails every Friday and you'll really enjoy not, ripping through your socks. I mean, I know that's silly, but it's like some things like that, oh, I never thought of it. And so, yeah, so I know it's touched thousands, hundreds of thousands of people's lives. I really don't know. I've really not kept track, and I'm not very good on with the like social media and stuff like that. It's everything that I've has happened has been all word of mouth, so it's been really kind of a neat thing. And I kind of wanted it that way just because I don't really want looky-loos, it's a waste of my energy as far as I'm concerned, unless they have some sort of interest, like, oh, I'm skeptical, but I'd like to see what you do. Great, no problem. But don't come here to just, be a looky-loo and then try to debunk me or put me down or what. It's such a waste of time for everybody. It's like, let's just be nice.
It's kind of neat to think that the people you touched and who grew in the business have touched so many more people that's spreading. Like when we wound up in your living room with those meetings,
Yeah,
we,
the open sessions.
we were so wet behind the ears, and you gave us such a jolt with the um, mystical aspects of this journey, and that really propelled us along. That was a big part of our journey, and we thank you for that.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you very much. You guys obviously touched my life too, because he never forgot you, and when we got in touch again, it was like, we didn't lose a minute, did we, in between? It was just so easy just to, hey, how you doing? It was so great.
Sure. Yeah. One of my favorite
Thank
stories.
you, Mel. That was
One of
beautiful.
my favorite stories with Dr. Peebles when we first started coming. Maybe it was the first or second time, but we were living in Sedona over in the Wild Turkey, and I had my first experience with ET,
Hmm.
where I woke up and there was this ET sitting on top of me with this tall being, with his fingers on my third eye. And then as I came full awake, you couldn't see him, but it scared the shit out of me, just absolutely scared. And I could not stop crying. And we came to a meeting with you and Dr. Peebles. And so when it came my turn to ask a question, I said, am I going crazy, or was there an ET sitting on top of me the other night? And he goes, you are going crazy because there was an ET sitting on top of you. And he says, they took away your security blanket, didn't they? And I
Oh,
said, yes, because I had been crying for 2 weeks, because it's one thing to believe ET is there, but when you experience it, you know. And so he did his little thing of, well, let me come in and take a little peek around.
oh
And
yeah.
he shifted it for me right there and right then, which was, even though I knew that there were extraterrestrials and other beings and things like that, it was the first time I'd experienced. And it was such a healing. I stopped crying after that, and I got my security blanket back. And it was just such a lovely experience. But that was one of my first
Wow.
energetic experiences with him.
Wow, that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. That's really interesting. Yeah. Yeah, he used to do a lot of that, come inside, take a peek around inside of people, and he fixed heart conditions like at least two or three people who didn't have to have surgery after that.
Wow.
It was pretty amazing. Yeah, it's because it's all energetics again, and yeah, you and I, boy,
Yep.
ETs. Yep, had 'em on my back. Had
Yep.
one on my back. Yep. And woke up in the middle of the night and I'm pushing up and I thought, gosh, I must be really tired. And I look over my shoulder and there's one on my back. And I pushed up. I wasn't scared. I was pissed. I was angry. I said, you have no permission to be here. How dare you? And then I'm sitting on the edge of the bed going, okay, I have officially gone crazy. And I look up and there's another one standing over by my kitchen looking at this little lighthouse lamp that I had, that I still have. And I looked at him and I'm like, get out. You have no permission to be here. And they left. I mean, that was it.
Wow.
That's really all that it takes. Oh, that's something just before I go into trance. But one thing about like extraterrestrials, poltergeists, ghosts, and all this stuff, they have no permission to be there. With you give them permission through your fear, your expectations, or whatever. If you're in a place of fear about ghosts, the ghosts have the control. I've been in an abusive marriage. The thing that my husband loved about it was that he could control me. That's what they dig it. That's what bullies do. They squash people down so that they don't have to grow. But the minute you don't let it get to you, that'll just really upset them, and then they just get frustrated and walk away. He was choking me one time and literally pressing down on my esophagus, and it was collapsing. I was pregnant, 9 months pregnant, and I thought, this is a weird way. This is what's going through my mind. I'm like, this is a strange way to go. And I said, but God, if this is the accent mark on my life that's supposed to happen, then so be it. And all of a sudden, my husband jumped off of me and he's shaking his hands. He goes, what did you do? What did you do? And it's like as if he had been hit by a lightning bolt, literally. And I'm laying on the bed, like kind of like trying not to laugh because I'm thinking, dang, God, you really you do have lightning bolts. That's amazing. And you know how to use them. This is like
Right.
absolutely amazing. So, you have a lot more power than you're told you have, a lot more power.
Interesting.
Trust me. If you go into that realm, you'll never want to leave it.